waits about 6 months. So you might notice that the bottom 2 rows of this are the standard option contract. It's only the top row that's different. So what we're going to do to make it cancelable is we're going to first take away Bob's ability to get the Zcash. Second, refund Alice's Zcash. And third, refund Bob's Bitcoin. And the way we're going to do that is via a pre-signed cancellation transaction. So this gets created and signed by Alice before the contract executes. So that, Alice and Bob in multisig in the top right is going to sign a transaction that pays that Zcash to, look, I made slides to do the breakdown that I just did. I need to trust myself and just move on for the slides. Anyways, so we're going to pay from that multisig route in that script in a pre-signed transaction that's not on chain yet. Okay? So Alice signs it, gives it to Bob. He holds on to it until he wants to cancel. And what this cancellation transaction does is it moves it from the script on the left, which is our cancelable option script, to the script on the right. And what the script on the right does is give Alice the ability to get her money out within 12 hours. After 12 hours, it gives Bob her money. So she has to do it within 12 hours or she will lose all her money. And to do it, she must reveal the cancellation secret, right? So Alice must refund and reveal a secret, or Bob gets her money after 12 hours. And Bob decides when this cancellation process starts. So here's the happy path. It looks just like the normal option. We lock up the Bitcoin, we lock up the Zcash. Bob takes the Zcash, Alice gets the Bitcoin. That's what happens if it's exercised. Okay? Then this is the cancellation process. Bob locks up the Bitcoin, Alice locks up the Zcash. When Bob wants to cancel, he moves the Zcash. Oh, I messed up my settlement. He moves the Zcash to the cancellation script, and Alice refunds from there. When Alice refunds, it reveals the cancellation secret, which lets Bob refund. So here's the cancellation. This is if the option expires. We have it just like the normal option. This is the exercise path. Bob claims the money, and then Alice claims the Bitcoin. And this is the cancellation path. Bob gets the right to exercise or cancel. Alice is locked up. When Bob cancels the option, Alice must refund her money. When Alice does that, Bob gets his money back too. So this can happen at any point during the 6-month contract. So this means that Bob, as the holder of the option, doesn't have to be illiquid for the whole duration. If he needs his money back, he can get it. He has the right to cancel. He does this with a pre-signed transaction that changes the terms of the existing contract. All right, so that's what I have to share today. This is really a lot to digest all at once, and the cross-chain stuff is a little difficult, so we'll do a lot more questions in a minute. And we can go back over anything until you feel comfortable with it. I try to keep these short so that we can do more Q&A. But we are working on a lot more than this. So here's a teaser for the future. And those boxes are supposed to be unicorns, and the rainbows are supposed to be in color. But I guess emoji don't like me today. So, all right. We've talked a little bit about Solidity here. I phrase everything in terms of Bitcoin and UTXOs because they're much more restrictive. And anything we design for Bitcoin, we can do in Solidity. And it turns out we can also do a lot more in Solidity if you trust Ethereum. People use it. So what about an Ethereum token with hash-locked issuance rights? So this gives Bob the right to issue tokens by paying Bitcoin. We can do that with the exact same option structure, but instead of getting Zcash, he makes new tokens. We can have hash lock rights to any Ethereum contract, so we can always make a Solidity contract whose execution is contingent on me paying Bitcoin, right? So we can do cross-chain messaging in a very simple way that way. I think that token issuance is one of the more interesting ones because of how much money people are spending on tokens right now. Like really unreasonable amounts of money, but and once we get into Solidity land, we can do some other magic things, like instead of Bob putting up the money up front, what if Bob didn't put up the money at all until he wanted to exercise the option? And when he wants to exercise the option, he will provide in Solidity to an Ethereum contract an SPV proof that he paid Bitcoin recently, right? So in a Solidity contract, we can validate a Bitcoin block header or multiple Bitcoin block headers. We can validate a Merkle tree proving that a specific transaction was included in those headers. And then we can validate the script that was paid to by a transaction. And we can prove that Bob paid to the option script in Bitcoin within a Solidity contract. So then, he doesn't have to put up Bitcoin at all until he wants to exercise the option. So there's a lot more interesting and new things we can do with these basic primitives and contracts when we mix in Solidity, when we mix in Stellar, and when we mix in all of these other chains' unique features. I'm not a one-chain developer here. I don't think we end up in a one-chain world. We're trying to build cool stuff for every chain and every interaction between chains. All right, more questions? Woo! Yes. So Bitcoin block headers follow a very particular format, but the only thing we care about is the proof of work. So we verify that they present a header of the appropriate length, and that the Merkle tree for the Merkle root, which is embedded in the header, contains as a leaf node some transaction that pays to a specific, creates a specific UTXO. As long as the headers contain enough accumulated work, we know that either they are part of Bitcoin's main chain, or someone just spent $20 million to mess with us. And in either case, we're kind of fine with it. As long as we're not risking $20 million on this, which honestly I don't think we should be on any single transaction right now. Yes?
The cancellation transaction?
Yes.
The second output was bought after 12 hours.
So the cancellation script.
Right, the cancellation script. Is that just to incentivize Alice to produce the secret?
Yes, that is to force Alice to allow the cancellation, or she loses her Zcash, and then Bob gets his Bitcoin back after 6 months. So if Alice does not cooperate with the cancellation, she loses everything. Yes, Brent.
So when you're doing cross-chain time intervals like 6 months, so the delta of 6 hours on that actually matters. You're not using block height, that you're stuck with.
You can use block height if you assume that everything averages out to 95% of the expected block interval because proof of work's going up all the time. But probably better to use timestamps because most chains, they're pretty reliable with.
Because your delta on the very first one was less than 5%.
Yes. Yeah. Parameterizing that is difficult and is a really fun statistics problem. Yes.
So when you're paying to the Ethereum smart contract, then how do you factor in the cost of changing gas prices?
So when we're paying into a Solidity contract, how we factor in gas prices? For a lot of these things, we're solving that for the near future by making the contracts fairly large, where gas is negligible. Gas is always paid by whoever submits a transaction. So it's up to whoever is currently calling the contract to set a reasonable gas price and to pay the gas. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. On the issue of how to avoid locking up the money for the two parties,
Yeah.
I understood that if we assume we have solidity with ideas like the SPV proof that you talked about.
Yes.
What if we assume we don't have solidity? Do you have any ideas of how to do it in like pure Bitcoin to avoid locking up that money?
So there are constructions in Bitcoin not to avoid locking up the money, but to make the locked up money, the rights to that money, tradable. And so that's what I would pursue first. I don't know if there's a way to do it in pure Bitcoin without locking up money, but we can make it a little more liquid.
You could do it like the guys at GoAbra do. They actually make a contract, a put or a get on the financial system against that. So you could bet against it or bet for it. And that contract has a liquid value. It's in like 23 countries. It actually gets around the money laundering rules.
So Abra does essentially pool user risk and enter into an offsetting position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do all of this without a central party managing it, without a central party enforcing the terms of the contract. And I don't know if there's a reasonable way to pool risk without a central party to manage it. Yes.
I have a very naive question. So if this is a fully decentralized exchange, Bob and Alice, they have to exchange a secret or something. How do they meet? Like, where do they actually, do they monitor blockchain for this type of contracts? Like, how do they find it?
So we're making contracts, we're not making like an exchange or a marketplace. We think that that solution will show up once these, or we'll build it once these work and there's enough interest in them. So right now, Alice and Bob basically have to know each other in real life and agree on the terms of this contract.
Right.
They never have to exchange a secret, or they never have to exchange something that stays secret. All of the communication in this could be done on chain if we wanted to. They have to exchange public keys and the hashes of secrets, but they never have to exchange anything that's non-public.
But they should be aware of it.
Yes, they need to be aware of each other and they need to be communicating. So maybe at first this looks like known people at funds talking to each other on the phone. Maybe it just looks like me and some guy on IRC playing with it. We're still in the like setup and contract instantiation phase. We're not trying to jump straight to a DEX or a marketplace for this.
How would you build it?
How would I build a central order book for it? It's possible to, I haven't fleshed this out, but I think it's possible that a central order book could cache partially constructed transactions. But that's getting into a, the other way to do it is just to have a central order book that introduces people and say, if you guys don't trade, I'm docking your accounts or something. That's easy. Yes, Brent.
And all of the secret reveals here, you can if you have aggregatable signatures.
Potentially, yes. But you'd need both chains to support aggregatable signatures, most likely. If you want all of the revelation to be hidden from the blockchain. Or you'd need like Taproot or something.
Is it possible actually to clear this decentralized? Because somebody's got to enforce the contract besides just the technical part. Because we all know at some point someone's going to find a hole to exploit it. That's why I like the one thing Abra's approach that I do like is they create an ecosystem where there's incentivized for more people to actually give people money and settle out or take money out and take the risk. So you're really just decentralizing the risk and then incentivizing what people are doing anyway to save when the exchanges get hit themselves. So maybe that's a way you could operationalize that and reward those who enforce that for you en masse.
Yeah, potentially. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for central businesses to provide value around these contracts. One of the reasons that we keep it so simple here is to so that we can be sure there aren't any exploitable holes. As long as Alice and Bob stay online for these constructions, they won't lose their money. And they can, between the two of them, enforce the terms of the contract. Yes.
if one party wants to.
Oh, that's a really fun problem, which I haven't fleshed out a full answer to yet. The basic instructions can just do it natively. In fact, you can enter into and modify the terms of existing contracts just by making more on-chain transactions. So we could increase the amount of BTC on one time at a specific time if we wanted to, but I think that there are ways, but I have not done a lot of research there. Yes?
Have you introduced the token economy into this model yet?
So I think I mentioned earlier about the token economy that when we're in Ethereum, we can tokenize the rights and obligations of these contracts. So, for example, when I lock up Ethereum as part of this contract, I can create a token that represents the right to that Ethereum. And whoever holds that token gets the Ethereum paid out to them when the contract resolves. So, hypothetically, you have a token whose price tracks Bitcoin because the market prices it based on their confidence that that option will or won't be exercised, right? So the market should price that token to reflect the current, BTC in Ether exchange rate and the movements of that rate. Yes?
You thought about some of the possibilities that open up with something like Lightning, where everything is off-chain. Of course you have.
Yeah. So my main concern is Lightning can do really fast swaps, really great. When we get into longer dated contracts, you can't attach something to this to a Lightning channel without blocking the channel. So I don't want to block channels for 6 months. But what we can do is anytime we see a multi-sig in any one of these contracts or anything resembling a multi-sig, or anytime we see a single signature, we could replace it with a multi-sig. All of those can be opened as Lightning channels. A Lightning channel is just a structure that builds a couple unsigned or signed off-chain transactions off of a multi-sig. Any Bitcoin that's locked up for these contracts could be opened as a Lightning channel, similar to Ethereum tokens, trading the rights to that Bitcoin. Lightning is asset agnostic once you get past that it's written for Bitcoin, but that is a very long way off. Yes?
In some examples, technically one of the owners of Alice has ownership over their locked token and also the token of the person who owns the is active. Is there any type of risk condition that can happen with sending cancellation and Bitcoin cancellation? Is there also still possession?
So they're not actually in possession of both tokens. The tokens are locked up in scripts that enforce specific terms, right? And so when we build these scripts, we set the timeouts such that that can't happen. So this is why Alice's timeout is slightly shorter than Bob's timeout, is so that there is no race condition. We know the order in which things will happen. This is what Graham was talking about earlier with the wobbliness of time on chain, is we need to pick durations for each side of this contract that minimize the probability that they will happen in the wrong order. Yes?
Yeah, just related to that. I think in your first example, it was 5 hours on one side and 6 on the other.
Yeah.
Does that mean on one side of the other, there's no block for an hour?
Yeah, so 5 hours and 6 hours is not very safe. 2 hours and 3 hours also not very safe. But the mandatory is a little safer than the optional version because there's a no action period. But basically, we need those to be long enough that randomness in the chains like that averages out, so that even if there's not a block for an hour, the contract still works. This is why we probably want it to be timestamp instead of block height for all of this stuff. Yes.
Very quick follow-up. When you say the timestamp, that's the timestamp of the block, not the transaction.
Yes, the timestamp of the block. And timestamps, well, okay, it's actually a little more complex than that. In Bitcoin, sorry, let's back up. In Zcash, it's the timestamp of the block. In Bitcoin and most other chains, it's the median timestamp of the previous 11 blocks. So that ensures that it moves monotonically instead of going forwards and backwards like in Zcash. Bitcoin block timestamps can still go forwards and backwards, but we don't use them to measure time. Yes?
Sounds like I need cross-chain block timestamp insurance of some sort.
I can make that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it.
Yeah.
Totally possible.
I have a spec for difficulty derivatives, and we could use that to do timestamp insurance. Yes?
Well, it is a little more chain specific, but there's something like Zcash no input add more flexibility, like the tech can give time forward.
Yes. It definitely adds a lot more flexibility, and I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it yet. But also, I don't expect it to be merged or active for at least 2 years, so not a pressing concern. Yes?
If Alice and Bob are total strangers, besides the exchange rate, what is the absolute least amount of information they need to directly send each other? Like a transaction ID from Alice and Bob, and that's it. Everything else is.
Yeah, not a transaction ID. You don't even actually need the transaction ID. So what Bob and Alice need to communicate to each other is one pub key per person per chain, and then the hash of the secret. They also need to communicate the terms of the contract, which is which assets, how much of each asset, and what the duration is. But one pub key hash each plus the secret. So the way I have it set up in practice right now is Bob will communicate 2 pub key hashes and the secret hash to Alice, and Alice will communicate back 2 pub key hashes.
But if the script is presumably is a pair script hash,
yeah,
you wouldn't know that your pub key is in there.
Yes, because once you have all 4 pub key hashes and the secret hash, you can independently derive both script hash addresses. Yes.
How much discussion is there going on about like a decentralized P2P layer to communicate these type of things?
Not a lot. I don't worry about it. It's not in my roadmap at all. I think that this community disproportionately focuses on marketplaces when we're not even close to ready for them. P2P exchange is really, really hard and provides very few advantages over centralized exchange. No offense, Brendan. So I'm building contracts and ways for me and you to trade. We'll build out marketplaces on top of that later, once we know if these are actually viable.
So the business layer is really providing that communication, or the business aspect is providing that communication layer.
For now.
But you've allowed the option to take that out of your business with this. Yeah.
Yep.
Things you want to do, I guess.
And also, anything in crypto that's on chain is replicable. So it's not really defensible to keep my IP secret. I think that most of the value proposition of a business like this comes out of the relationships. Tech is replicable, relationships aren't. Any other?
Speak
One more
up.
time, sorry. It's not all open right now. Once it's a little more polished, it's all going to be open. And like for all of this stuff, once it's on chain, it's open source and anyone can recreate it. You can't keep anything on chain a secret. Yes, Brent.
So slightly out there, for the situations where you need something to expire in a certain time.
Yes.
You could potentially build that by having something where the counterparty can spend it in less than that amount.
Yes. So you can expire things. This is the way to do it in Bitcoin, which doesn't support expiry natively, by creating a set of pre-signed transactions with other inputs that are time-locked. So you need to create one time-locked input per script path you want to expire, and pre-sign one transaction per expire. script path. It's painful, but it's totally doable.
They can be arbitrary.
Yes, they can be arbitrarily small inputs as long as they're above dust limit, which is actually not that small right now, strangely. But yeah, it's still less than a penny. Don't worry about it. Yes.
Also, another question. Do you need anything more than basic Bitcoin script? Let's say you have 2 Bitcoin blockchains, like Bitcoin Cash. Can you do that? Or you need something else?
So for the only thing that needs something else is the mandatory exchange. That needs a chain that supports expiry. Everything else I've shown can be done with just Bitcoin. Bitcoin to Litecoin or Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash. This one requires one of the chains to have a malleability fix because it requires a pre-signed transaction. Let's see. For Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, one of the other fun things I made last year was a design for a fork future. So a contract we could enter into now that would trade my Bitcoin for your Segwit 2x coin after the fork. Never got to see the light of day, unfortunately. But these things are possible. We can arbitrage chain forks. We can make contracts that we instantiate before a fork that take effect after. We can move between just Bitcoin-like chains pretty easily. Yes.
And Chia scripts support the expiry activity?
I am not sure if Chia transactions are going to support expiry natively. No? Great. A lot of people don't like expiry as a concept because it makes the transactions less safe in reorgs. Because if the height of the chain changes drastically in a reorg, your transaction with an expiry time might have been valid on one fork but invalid on the other, which means that you could accidentally double spend your coins with transaction expiry. So Zcash has decided to accept this risk. Ethereum just kind of gets it by default because Solidity and shared state are kind of scary and terrible sometimes. But Bitcoin, Chia, and a bunch of others, I don't think will ever have that feature. Yes?
Do you have a document for people who are working on new blockchain technology as to which operations they should support to make these things interoperable?
Support what Bitcoin script supports. Yep. Anything you add on top of that is like bonus value add, as long as you're careful about it. Don't do things like what what Bitcoin Cash is doing with group ID or whatever it's called. They haven't done it yet. There's a lot of argument about it, but it's a terrible idea, and you can quote me on that. All right, any other questions? Are we good? You good?
Does everybody want to take a break? Maybe
I could use a break.
For a while? Or are you guys good?
Thank you very much for coming. Yeah. Please network a little bit. As well as say hi. Overtime.
That's the bet. I'm actually